But anyway, I remember I went to Kevin, who just sounded incredible, and I said, "Man, you sound so good. You must practice so much. How much do you practice?" And he said, "Well, I honestly I try to practice as little as possible." And I was like, "Huh?" Hi, pianists. I hope you guys are all doing great, and I hope practicing is going well. Um, so one of the things that we focus on in this class beyond just piano is the idea of practicing, how to practice effectively. So in this video, I want to talk about a few things. The first thing is the practice plan sheet. The purpose of this sheet is to help us get good at breaking things down. So we have, certain goals that we make. In the case of this class, it's usually whatever is going to be on the next quiz. And then figuring out how to do it, how we're going to achieve that goal in that time frame. And this works not just for piano class, but for really practicing anything with music. So the first thing, the purpose of this is to break it down into small chunks. Philosophically, we want practicing to be easy. If it ever feels like what we're working on is too hard, then we have to figure out a way to simplify what we're doing. We have to break it down into a smaller component that's easy for us. And we get good at that, and then we add the next component. So we get good at practicing whatever it is that we practice. We get good at doing whatever it is that we practice. So if we practice something incorrectly, then we get good at playing it incorrectly. So the idea with practicing is you want to set yourself up to be playing things correctly the first time. Because once you play something incorrectly, your brain has to unlearn it and then learn it the correct way. So it's much easier to just get it right the first time. That usually means breaking it into smaller chunks, taking things slowly. What you don't want to do is just play something from beginning to end over and over again, because all that's going to do is reinforce what you're doing. So you don't want to play it incorrectly over and over again with just the hope that it gets better. And I know when I'm saying this now, that sounds obvious, but that's, if we don't stop and think about it, that's how so many of us tend to instinctively practice, as we just start at the beginning of a song and we just try it again and again over and over, and just hope that the mistakes will improve. It's much better to break things down. So a few ways to simplify things. Working on smaller quantities of it, typically working on just a few measures at a time. So you might say, okay, I'm going to work on the first 4 bars of this song today, and tomorrow I'll work on the next 4 bars, and the day after I'll work on the next 4. And it might take a little longer before you can play the song from beginning to end, but when you can play it from beginning to end, you'll be able to do it accurately and how you want to do it. So you might try breaking something down to 4 bars. If that feels like too much, then break it down to 2 bars. If that feels like too much, break it down to 1 bar. And so as small a chunk as you need to. Another way to deal with things is to go hands separately. So you might first work out your right hand, then you work out your left hand, and then you gradually put them together. I know for me, if I'm learning a Bach piece, that's how I have to do it. And it's usually like 1 measure a day, and I'll just do the right hand and then just do the left hand. And I might even be putting them together 1 beat at a time in slow motion, and then gradually pick up the pace. And that brings us to the other another way to break things down: slow it down. You want to be using a metronome in your practicing all the time. It's going to be, you want it to be on basically the entire time you're practicing. But setting it really, really, really slow for complicated things, so that everything you're doing is in time. And then once you can play it in time, no matter how slow it is, then it's just a matter of clicking that metronome up. And you can do it, if it's easy, you can click it up, 5 clicks at a time. If it's hard, maybe 1 click at a time. And it's going to be a slow process, but you'll get there, and that's the important thing. So as far as when you go to break down the assignment on your practice plan sheet, you'll list the different things, and it's going to be different for everyone. You are going to come to figure out what works well for you and what doesn't. But in the case of what we're doing now, you'd have the chord cycles would be one thing. Playing tune-up with the melody and two-note voicings would be the second thing. And maybe the third thing would be comping through tune-up, right? And you might say, okay, I'm going to do 4 bars a day of the melody of tune-up. And maybe you would say, I'll do... I mean, there's a lot of ways you could do it. You could do 4 bars of the melody and then go and do that same 4 bars of the comping. You might just do 2 bars of the melody and 2 bars of the comping. You might decide to get the whole melody done the first few days and then do the comping the next few days. And then the cycles, you might, I'd probably, for something like cycles, you might work on them a little bit each day might be a good way to go, but do them starting in different spots. You could try them slow. A way to work it out could be to write it out first, and then come back and do it from memory. So these are the types of things you want to put in your practice plan. Now, part of why it's helpful to have the practice plan is, first of all, it's going to keep you on task, but it's also going to help you be efficient. I know for me, the hardest thing when I go to practice is figuring out what to do. And so by having a practice plan in place, when you get to the practice room, or probably right now if you're you're probably practicing from home, but when you go to practice, you don't want to have to first figure out what you're going to do. You want to show up and know what you're supposed to do. You say, before you get to practice, you say, okay, before I get in, I need to work on these scales. I'm going to be working on these 4 bars. And that's nice too. First of all, you're not going in and trying to figure out what to do right away. But it also, you can feel done, right? There's in this business of music, we always there's always something else we can work on, right? And that can be exhausting. It can be overwhelming if you always feel like, okay, now I can go work on this, and now I can work on this. By having a to-do list of what you hope to accomplish each day, then you can actually feel done and go and, watch TV in peace, or read a book, or go outside for a walk, and not feel like you should be doing something else. So I really encourage you to have this sort of to-do list. And that sort of brings us from the practice plan to the practice log. With the practice log, the reason we're doing it is so we can keep track of how we're using our practice time and use that information to become more efficient as practicers. So it's different than a lot of times, like people in high school or as kids, you'll have band directors that'll be like, you need to be practicing this much every day and keep a log of it, so that you can. And for them, it's like how the more you practice, the better. And in our case, we actually are going for more efficiency. So, like, I remember, here's a little anecdote. When I was a freshman in college, all of the music folks around me, all of the other freshmen were sort of in competition to see who could be practicing more. And they'd be like, oh, I practiced 4 hours. And somebody else would be, I was in there for 5 hours this afternoon. And and I, as a freshman, I couldn't hang with that much practicing. But I remember there was a junior when I was a freshman who was this great trumpet player from New Orleans named Kevin Lewis. And he's still a great trumpet player. And he's the trumpeter for the Preservation Hall band today. But anyway, I remember I went to Kevin, who just sounded incredible, and I said, man, you sound so good. You must practice so much. How much do you practice? And he said, well, I honestly, I try to practice as little as possible. And I was like, huh? Because all of my friends were practicing as much as possible. And he said, yeah, I try to, get in and get out as efficiently as I can. I try to go in, know what I need to do it, and leave. And that was a totally different way of thinking about it, because up till then I'd been thinking, how much time can I spend on these scales? And when I would be thinking of it that way, I was often inefficient with my practice time. I wasn't really accomplishing things. I was just trying to beat out the clock. So that's how we want to think about practicing, is having a goal, what you need to do, you go in, you knock it out, and then you can move on. So by keeping a practice log, it allows you to see how you actually spent your time. And so with each assignment, the things that are successful or aren't successful, we can then look at your practice log and say, okay, we spent too much time on this, not enough time on this. So it's not really something that you're filling out to prove that you practice. That's not the purpose of it for this class. The purpose of it is for sort of a diagnostic tool. So we can look at your practicing and say, okay, this is how we can make your practicing even better. We can improve what you're doing even more. So that's the purpose of the practice log. The last thing I'm just going to mention, because they're useful. We work on real music in this class, and for this week, for this 2 weeks, it's the song "Tune Up," and it goes without saying that whenever you're assigned something, you want to go and check out the recording. So I did send you a YouTube link to the recording of Miles Davis playing Tune Up. But not just for this class, but for anything. Anytime you're learning a tune, you want to go and check out the recording of it. If nothing else, just to remind you that it's real music that you're playing. It's not just like videos of me, playing whole notes. These are real songs. So you want to have that sense that this is music, and so that's a good habit to get into. The other thing, and I'll be sending this attached with this video. It can be really useful to practice with a backing track. So you can find Aebersold recordings. So Aebersold recordings were the recordings that were backing tracks, and they're really good rhythm sections, playing the chord progressions to these songs, and they go with books. They're all published by Jamie Aebersold, and you can take the piano out. They're great. You can find a lot of those on YouTube. But you can also get an app, which I'm going to really recommend you get, called iReal Pro. It is for you can get. I think it's on Android now too, but it's the reason I originally got an iPad years ago, and it's also for iPhone, and it has all these songs, tons of chord changes to songs, and you can edit the chord change. You can put it in different keys. You can change the tempo. You can change the time feel. You can take piano out so that you're just getting bass and drums. And I would really encourage you to practice the music for this class along with that, because it's fun. Because you can kind of, it's not exactly the same as playing with a band, but it feels kind of like you're playing with a band. So it's a really fun way to practice. Speaking of reminding yourself this is music. So I'd recommend getting that iReal Pro app. If you're not using that, even just going on YouTube and just doing a search for backing tracks for these songs, and you'll find recordings of and you can even find them without piano, so that you can be the pianist, and find the recordings of the songs, and you can play along. One thing with the iReal Pro, don't look at it while it's playing. So you might hook it into headphones, or if you hook it through speakers, it actually sounds quite good. Much better than just coming out your phone speaker. But one thing it does, it scrolls along the chord changes as it plays. And for us as learners, that's not helpful, because we want to get in the habit of following in the sheet music or even playing from memory. So don't look at it, just listen to the iReal Pro app. Okay, yeah, so that, with this video, that covers everything for the next for the assignment, which is due a week from today. Now use your time to practice, and please ask me questions. Send me emails. I'm happy to answer questions. If you want to see how something is going, if you want to make sure it's right, feel free and send me an email, a video of you doing it, anything you want. I'm at your disposal. So please take advantage of that, and let me know what questions you've got. Thanks a lot, everybody. Good luck with your work, and I look forward to hearing from you and hearing some of your playing.